angry with me. That's okay. I knew that was coming, and I do want to mention right off the top, Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, with you as always. Excuse me. It does seem a little trivial right now talking about football.
Yeah.
It does, and we're very well aware that Alex is going to read off an update. Was it from the Bills?
We got 2 updates. I'll just get right into it here. So first off, this is probably about 5, maybe 10 minutes ago. Kaiir Elam, who's a corner for the Bills, a rookie corner, tweeted, "Our boy is doing better, awake, and showing more signs of improvement. Thank you, God. Keep the prayers coming. All love 3." And then that was 3 being Damar Hamlin's number, right? And then that was followed by an update from the Bills. This literally as the Open was playing. Per the physicians caring for Damar Hamlin at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, Damar has shown remarkable improvement over the past 24 hours. While still critically ill, he's demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact, his lungs continue to heal, and he is making steady progress. We are grateful for all the love and support we have received. So,
fantastic news.
Right. Sounds like maybe not out of the woods yet, but certainly I think this is the first big update we were all waiting for, and certainly could be a lot worse, right? So it sounds like things are trending I'm not a medical professional, but it sounds like things are trending in the right direction, which I think is all you can pretty much ask for at this point.
Right, and Adam Schefter this morning also tweeted that Damar Hamlin's father actually addressed the team and gave an update. I think it was actually last night that they gave that update.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
But that the general feeling in the building from the team standpoint was that they heard a lot of encouraging things that made them feel better about moving forward and made them feel better about the situation as much as you possibly can. So we have to talk about it because we can't talk about football without that being in our minds to a degree. And it's hard because we all love the game. We all love covering the game, Alex and I, and watching it as fans. And this is always the fear, right? Like there's always that fear that somebody's going to get hit in a football game and he's not going to get back up. And we haven't really seen this in our lifetime. I know it's happened, at some point in the history of the NFL. But in today's day and age where there's a million ESPN cameras, there's social media, there's all these different things, this thing obviously is tough to see. And I hope that the Bills are given the leeway from the NFL that if they decide as a team that they're just not ready to play this game on Sunday from a mental health standpoint, obviously Damar Hamlin's health is the number one thing that we have to think about. But number 2 to that, I would also just mention the mental health of the players and his teammates, right?
Yeah.
And the players on the Bengals side of things too that just witnessed what happened on Monday night. And that's important too. So I think there's a lot of those angles. Obviously our thoughts and prayers are with Damar Hamlin, and I'm so glad to hear that he's starting to pull out of this and hopefully doesn't have any long-term damage from all of this. With that being said, we are going to talk about football because that's what we do, and that's what we're going to do. I have to move. Here we go. Okay. All right, there we go.
This is the new
video,
era of the cameras.
Right? Yeah. We got the video here today. We are going to talk about football, and I'm going to admit before we move on here from the Damar Hamlin stuff, getting fired up about this is feel silly to me at this point. It does, but that's what we do, and that's what we're gonna do. So you can call in and join the show here at 855-PATS-500. Web radio at patriots.com is the email, as you all probably know at this point. And I want to start with the quarterback because that's where we always start. I want to start with the offense, though, as a whole, and the quarterback as a secondary to that, obviously, because that's what we do. We get fired up about people that are. I mean, the clip in the open said it all, right? Right, and I don't want to go on that whole rant again, but I still go back to when it comes to Mac Jones. Can someone offer a real critique of his game? Like, can we talk about a real critique?
You're talking about specifically the performance on Sunday.
Sure, yeah, the performance on Sunday in particular, because that's what's the newest information we have. But can we talk about a real critique of the film of his game? Because everything that I hear, or tend to hear, I guess I should say, about Mac Jones is related to his body language, how he looks, oh, he's a whiny baby, oh, he's a noodle arm, he has no zip on his throws, he's missing an open receiver. Like I hear all these absolutes, right? Like all these dramatic the Patriots offense stinks. We know the Patriots offense isn't good. We know they don't score points. Do you know who also doesn't have a good offense? The Chicago Bears. Do I hear any of these things about Justin Fields? Right? Everybody loves Justin Fields, and I love Justin Fields. I love watching Justin Fields. But Justin Fields flat out looks better playing football. He's got a big arm, he's athletic, he runs, right? He does all these other things that add to just playing quarterback. And the Bears offense is, the Patriots are 26th in DVOA, the Bears are 27th. Like, they're both right there in the basement, right? So all this other stuff, and I know he went on your rival station, Alex, Boomer Esiason, like, coming out and saying, I don't remember the exact word that he used off the top of my head, maybe you do, about Mac Jones on, I think it was Monday.
He talked about the aesthetic. And look, I think there's something to that. If you go, so when you have all the team pictures. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
When I'm posting an article on 985thesportshub.com, right, and I need to find a picture to use.
Yeah.
Go on Getty.com and I type in Mac Jones, and it just gives me a bunch of pictures of Mac Jones. He doesn't photograph well on a football field. Like, no. He just doesn't.
He doesn't look. And when it goes bad for him, it looks even worse, right? Like when he's not playing well. And
I would even say when he throws the ball, like, he kind of makes weird faces, and he's not the first quarterback to do that. You know who else doesn't, like, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Go look at pictures of Justin Herbert and look at his face when he's throwing the football. That impacts the way people think about him. It's stupid.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just it's like, it almost kind of reminds me of, and you're going to hate this, but I don't care. Remember, it was earlier this year, somebody flipped the video of Tua, so we saw what he looked like throwing righty, and everybody was like, wow, he looks like a completely different quarterback.
Right.
It's just the aesthetic of it.
Right. And I think that's why I get so triggered by it, is because I don't give a crap, right? Like,
you are not a guy for aesthetics. You are not a fan of aesthetics.
I don't care what he looks like. I don't care about his mannerisms. I don't care about the sideline. I don't care about how he runs off the field after they don't convert another third down, because we've seen that a ton this year. I do not care. What does the film tell us? Is he making the right decisions with the football? Is he accurate with the football? Is he getting the ball into tight windows down the field? Is he making those down the field throws? Is he trigger shy, or is he willing to push it down the field? Like, all these things, I care so much more about his body language, the way he carries himself, the way he looks when he makes a throw. Like, I just, this type of stuff to me bugs me, because it's not that's not actually football, right? Like, it's not football. This is just, I don't like the guy. And if you don't like the guy, and I've been saying this for weeks now, because I feel like this has been brewing for a while. If you don't like the guy, I can't convince you to like him. Like, I can't convince you to want to like his aesthetic, or like his swagger, or lack thereof, or like his playing style. Like, I can't convince you otherwise. But what I want to get into is what actually he is putting on tape. The actual football of it, not all the other body language doctor crap. So I want to give a legitimate critique, because I think people think that I'm a Mac apologist and whatever. Okay, I don't care, but I want to give a legitimate critique.
I'm so proud you've gotten this far, by the way.
Yes.
You went from not wanting to take him until like the third round to now maybe being more of a Mac apologist.
I might have been right in my initial instinct on this one. I want to give a legitimate critique. So, if I told you, Alex, I looked this up the other day, and I was looking it up for the Buffalo Bills, and what I found out was actually astonishing. So astonishing to me that I looked it up again. I ran the Pro Football Reference search again to make sure that it wasn't like a bug or something like that in the system. The number one team in the league in producing explosive plays, right? Plays of 20-plus yards, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sure.
Not a surprise.
Patrick Mahomes will do that.
They by far and away lead the league. They have 49 of them. It's 8 more than second place. Guess who's in second place?
Patriots.
The Patriots.
Yeah.
The Patriots. So when I saw that, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, well, the Patriots actually have a secretly great offense because they produce 20-plus yard plays. But when I saw that, I did a double take, and I was like, I would not have guessed that. And I think what we've gotten to the point with this offense and with the quarterback, which I'll get to in a second as well, is that they have the ability to create chunk plays. They have the ability to throw the ball down the field. And they have the ability to have these moments where you're like, wow, that was a good play, right? Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones in the second half in Cincinnati. The opening drive, they hit Tyquan Thornton down the sideline. He hits Hunter Henry on third down, right? They have the ability to have these flashes, to have these moments, to have these high-level downfield throws. And they rank near the top of the league in explosive plays. They rank near the top of the league, Mac Jones does, in PFF's big-time throw rate, which I know people got on me and they hate that stat. I don't care. So they have these moments of flash where they do have these big plays. But the problem is that right now they are not doing the things to keep the chains moving, right? So they can have these big plays. And I mentioned Kansas City had 49 chunk plays this year. That means that they're roughly at 3 a game. So you're not going to sustain offense with 3 chunk plays per game. And that's the best offense in the league at doing it.
Right.
So what you need is to hit the 8-yard curl on 1st and 10, to convert on third down, to score in the red zone, right? Like all these little other things, these little details that end up being big things. So right now where the Patriots offense is at and where Mac Jones is at is that they're truly a boomer bust offense. They either are hitting a big play down the field, or they're false start, short run, incomplete, 3 and out, right? Like that there's no in between with the offense right now. And I think that this gets to the quarterback, which is my legitimate critique. Don't worry. I don't think he's perfect. All right. The legitimate critique, his short game was terrible in this game. His short game was off. His reads were off in the short game. There were some throws that were off in the short game. And what that leads to is that you can't matriculate the ball down the field, right? They can't string drives together. And so that's where you have these peaks and valleys where they can have the opening drive of the game. They can have the 89-yard drive in the fourth quarter, but then the middle quarters is a rut of nothingness. So, he had a couple different plays where I thought he didn't really read the underneath coverage very well. They ran, snag. And I want to mention this play because snag, which is, a flat, a shallow cross, and then you hook it up, right, in between the two zones. Snag is a play that every high school team in the country runs, right? Like, this is not Matt Patricia's bad at coordinating, okay? I'm not saying he's good at coordinating. It's one of the basic plays that every team puts into their playbook. But the point is that the quarterback, regardless of who's calling the play in from the sideline, should be able to execute it. And they get exactly what they want. Myers, he runs across the field on the shallow drag. It pulls the one zone defender this way. I think it was Tyquan runs the flat. It pulls the other zone defender that way. And Nelson Aguilar just sits right down in between the stretched out zones and is open on first down, wide open, waiting for the football. And Mac Jones decides to throw it over the middle to Jacoby Myers with 2 guys bracketing him in the zone. And it's incomplete. I thought that the ball that everybody I think is talked about with Hunter Henry in the flat where he kind of short arms it a little bit, I actually thought that was more about the read than it was about the throw. Okay, another throw that I thought he should have thrown the hitch instead of throwing the flat, curl flat combination, and he throws the flat instead of the curl. So for whatever reason, I feel like Mac Jones has, at least based off this film, and I think that there are some evidence from other films as well, his rookie season has flip-flopped. Now all of a sudden he's making these good throws down the field and maybe being a little bit more aggressive in his approach down the field, but he's not hitting the easy ones, right? He's not making the layups. And in order to be a sustained offense, you need to be able to make the layups. Whether you're Buffalo, Kansas City, the Patriots, the Bengals, it doesn't matter. You still need to be able to make those layups. And I think that that's what happens is, 1st and 10, they throw incomplete to the flat to Hunter Henry. Now it's 2nd and 10. And then maybe they gain yards on 2nd and 10, but now it's 3rd and 6. And now they have to convert a 3rd down, right? And we know that they've struggled in that department at times this year. So the short game was off in this one from Mac, which again, it seems to me like a flip-flop from what it was his rookie season, where you had some concerns that he wasn't pushing the ball down the field, or they weren't letting him push the ball down the field. Now they're letting him, and he's doing it, but he's regressed in the other areas. So that's an interesting thing I took away from this game. The other interesting thing I took away from this game was offensively. I actually think the Patriots offense in their passing game does a pretty good job against man coverage now. They went right down the field. And I know Miami had some injuries, right, in terms of the secondary. Xavier Howard's out. Byron Jones hasn't been playing. Nick Needham hasn't been playing. But at the same time, they have been able to beat man coverage. You can go back to the Pittsburgh game in the beginning of the year where Pittsburgh played a ton of man coverage and Nelson Aguilar had that big game.
Right.
So they've had this ability. They had some issues. Miami adjusted in the middle quarters to more zone, and they had some issues doing that. Right. They had some issues picking apart the zone, settling in zone. And I think the biggest reason why is, the old adage is you run away from man coverage, you find soft spots in zone. Right. That's how you incorporate your passing game. And I think the biggest reason why they've struggled against zone is because that takes chemistry, right? Like, that takes timing.
Right.
It's not just, I'm going to read it out, I'm going to look, Hunter Henry's going to beat his man, and I'm going to throw it and put the ball on him. This, when it comes to zone, it's where is he going to sit? Where is he going to settle? Does he see it the same way that I see it? Is it split safety? Is it post, right? Like, what is the coverage and what's the conversion based off the coverage? That type of stuff takes chemistry, it takes timing, dare I say it takes coordination, right? And those
that's
types,
what all those things are.
Right,
yeah.
and those types of things are fleeting this offense. So in a lot of ways, and Buffalo is coming in this week, and we're going to get to a Bills preview here soon. Buffalo in the Week 13 matchup played a ton of zone, and the Patriots obviously struggled with it. So now I feel like for years we were talking about this team can't get off press man, right? Like, they can't create separation against man. What I see on film with this team now is actually more struggles against zone than it is against man.
All right. So a couple things from
a lot to unpack. Yeah.
First off, you mentioned that really interesting number at the beginning, right? About 20-plus yard plays. The Patriots are second in the league.
Yes.
And you need to sustain what happens in between. I know people are probably going to roll their eyes at this stat. It's a little bit my station. Oh, well, if you take away this, right?
Yeah.
The Matt Zolla videos. But
yeah,
it proves a point here. Yards per play this season, just overall.
Right.
Patriots are averaging 5.3 yards per play on offense. That's tied for 17th in the league. So middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Yards per play on plays that gain less than 20 yards. So on one hand, you're taking out the big plays. Of course, the number is going to go down. But if you are a sustainable offense, you should still be at about the same spot, right, in terms of yards play, in terms of the ranking. Yeah. Everybody's number is going to go down. I'm looking at it here. The most yards per play, the team with the most yards per play on plays of under 20 yards is a yard less average than the last place team in terms of yards per play total. So we're not going to – don't focus on the total number here. Focus on the ranking, right? Focus on where they are relative to the other teams. The Patriots, again, yards per play, period. This year, offensively, tied for 17th. They are 29th – they are tied for 27th.
Yes.
In yards per play on non-explosive plays.
Right.
So that, just some numbers to back up your point there, that basically when they're not getting those shot plays, it's really the only way they're moving the ball at this point.
Right. And that is volatile. It just is inherently volatile, and we know that. And I think the other thing is if you look at those explosives, a lot of them are like 25-yard explosives, right? Like he hits Tyquan Thornton on the opening drive. I think it was a 24-yard pass, right?
Right.
And not a lot of them, unfortunately, have been for touchdowns, right? They're between the 20 explosives. But it's so weird to me because I love that stat that you brought up. I'm probably going to steal it from you.
That's according to Pro Football Reference. So
yeah,
that's
I love that stat because it's so weird to me because everything that you hear nowadays from coaches and stuff like that about football is that explosives, like big plays. If you get one big play a drive, then usually you are getting points from that drive. if you get 2 big plays in a drive, you're in the end zone, like almost every time, right? Like that's how it works. But this team is only getting in the end zone, when Marcus Jones houses one out from 48 yards, or the drive that they had against the Raiders where they had a big pass to Jacoby and a big run by Ramondre, and it was like a 4-play drive, right? Like those are the drives where they're scoring. Where they're not scoring is the 11, 12, 13 play drives, because eventually they shoot themselves in the foot and they go backwards, or they don't pick up the third down, or they have a false start on 1st and 10. Now it's 1st and 15 and you're playing behind the chains. So that's been the biggest issue for the offense, been the biggest issue for the quarterback as well. And I don't know if that gets better this year, but I do think that there is some positives that we can take away, and this is what I wrote earlier in the week, from the fact that the hard things they are actually doing, right? Like they're getting the big plays. He's making throws down the field. He's making higher level throws down the field, but the easy things is what they need to clean up, right? 1st and 10, 3rd and 6. Like, it bugs me to no end that 3rd and 6 is such a difficult down for this team. It shouldn't be, right? They should be able to move. 3rd and 6 should be like 60% of the time they convert it. It's not for the Patriots. So
I can tell you how much it is if you saw a little bit.
Those are the things that certainly stand out to you from this offense. Another thing that I want to get to is, before we move over to defense really quickly,
I have one more point. You give yours, but I have one more point on the offense.
Well, go ahead, because this isn't like a big picture thing.
Okay. So this isn't really a big picture thing either. It's actually bringing back something that we had talked about previously. Also, Patriots on 3rd and 6 this year, by the way. You want to guess?
For the 37%.
Close. They're 26th in the league, 35% on the dot.
Yeah.
They're averaging 5.4 yards.
The 26th ranking doesn't surprise me at all. Like that 3rd and 6, especially with this quarterback. Like I feel like Mac should be able to pick those up, right? We're not asking him to pick up 3rd and 15, where you might have to go extended play, or you might have to go with a big throw down the field or something like that off platform. No, we're just asking you to pick up 7 yards.
Oh wait, actually, sorry, that was the total third down. It's 26.3%.
Even lower.
28th in the league.
Yeah.
Although they are directly ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals.
That's surprising.
And then the Browns, Colts, and Washington. But the thing I wanted to bring up here, Evan, we talked about this, and it was probably more of a fair point at the time than I allowed it to be. I was just in my feels about the game, and this was after before the Minnesota game, when you talked about Mac needs to put together the drive, right?
Yes.
And this isn't quite that drive, but how many times this year have the Patriots, whether it's to go ahead or to put a game away, right? We've talked about, can they put that drive together? Can Mac put that drive together late in the game to at least seal the game, if not win it? And look, the level of difficulty on this one is not as high as maybe some of the other examples. But in this game against the Dolphins, Marcus Jones makes a great open field tackle on Tyreek Hill. Miles Bryant. Yeah.
Yep.
Miles Bryant makes a great open field tackle on Tyreek Hill. So credit to Miles Bryant. He had a great game in this one. Patriots get the ball back with about 10 minutes to go. They're up 16-14, so still very close. They then go 89 yards in 11 plays, take 5 minutes off the clock, and that's the drive that ended with that Jacoby Myers jump ball touchdown.
Yep, and the DPI on the sideline.
Yeah, Mac on this drive, Kendrick Bourne for 16 yards, incomplete to Kendrick Bourne, Stevenson for 5 yards, throws it deep to Jacoby for 25 yards. I think that's the throw that you shared on Twitter, right?
On the wheel route.
Yep, on the wheel route. Then they run it with Ramondre. Mac does the QB sneak, gets it to Hunter Henry for 4 yards to pick up the first down on 2nd and 2. 1 yard run for Ramondre. You get the pass interference. One more incompletion. Damian Harris down to the goal line, and then Mac makes the adjustment on that final play to get Jacoby Myers for the touchdown. Again, it's not Tom Brady against the Rams of 2001, but it's a glimpse into kind of that drive we've been waiting for Mac to put together. It feels like progress towards that. Yeah, we've been waiting for that put-away drive, 11 plays, 89 yards, 5 minutes, up 2. That's a put-away drive to me.
And honestly, look, I know what they did against the Bengals at the end of the game wasn't the drive that we are looking for, especially.
Almost was.
But they also, let's not forget, and I'm not saying they played well for the majority of the Raiders game, but they put the Patriots up 24-17 in the Raiders game too. So they've had some of that later game. They've made some of that happen. a little bit more maybe recently. I know the Bengals game kind of stands out as we have that one in there, so let's not forget about that. But they've been doing a little bit more. I come back to, though, like we were just mentioning, the non-explosives part of your offense, just converting 1st and 10 into 2nd and 3, right? And converting 2nd and 3 into a first down and 3rd and 6 into a first down. Like these situational things that should be easier than they are for this offense. And I think the big picture takeaway from all of it is that I still don't know what their identity is as an offense. I don't know on first down, what are you coming out in? Like, what's your grouping? What's the play call? Like, I think they want it to be spread quick game. Like, I think that's what they want it to be. But the quarterback, I don't think, has done a great job with it, quite frankly, in recent weeks. I think that's what they want their 1st and 10 identity to be, is Mac in the gun, 3 wide, 11 personnel. Let's run quick game, and let's get 1st and 10 into 2nd and 2, right? Like, I think that's what they want it to be.
Which is a good plan.
Yeah, it's a fine plan. For McDaniels, it's probably under center play action, full back, that sort of thing, right? That's sort of the identity.
Right.
But if this is going to be your first down identity, quick game, spread, all that, I'm fine with it. But you obviously, you got to be really good at executing that if that's your identity, right? The Patriots were great at lead the fullback through the whole play action, hit the crosser behind the linebacker, right? Like that was their offense, and they were great at it. They're not great at what they want their identity to be right now, and that's why their offense is so Jekyll and Hyde.
I think a lot of that offense is spacing. If you're not going to stretch the field horizontally, you have to stretch it vertically because there's less planes to work with, right? And when I say planes, like you can have 2 guys who are on the same plane horizontally if one guy's 5 yards downfield, one guy's 25 yards downfield, right? Because they're not near each other. But if you're going to say, hey, we're only going to work with 10 to 15 yards of the field, there's ways to do that. But it has to be spaced out correctly because you're going to run into situations like we saw early in that Bengals game, right, where receivers are on top of each other.
Or like when Jonnu Smith gets a concussion because Kendrick Bourne runs his route on top of him and in a quick game type of concept. Yeah. And Mac just throws it, not thinking Kendrick Bourne's going to be on top of Jonnu, and he gets sandwiched. Like, those are the things that you can't have with it. You have to have the quarterback has to read out the underneath coverage properly and get the ball to the open guy. Those types of things have to happen if you're going to be good quick game offense. And I don't mind quick game. Quick game, RPO, if that's their early down identity, I don't mind it. They're just not executing it well.
Right. But that almost gives you hope moving forwards, because it's like, hey, the pieces look like they're all there.
The idea behind it is not terrible, and I know I've bashed Matt Patricia a ton.
We've seen them do it in Windows, so it's not like they can't execute it. It's not like they're not talented enough to execute it.
Yeah.
Right?
Final point here about the offense, which I is kind of sprinting it forward to the Bills game here, and then we got to talk defense. In this Bills game, and look, I know that there's a ton of non-football stuff about this Bills game. We don't know Buffalo's mindset. We don't know if this game's even going to be played right now, but just operating under the assumption that they're going to kick off at 1 o'clock on Sunday and the Bills are going to be the Bills.
Yeah.
Just operating off of that. This is a game to me where you kind of have to let Mac try to cook a little bit. Like, I just don't think you're going to. We know about the sideline outburst the last time around on the Thursday night game, quick game. I'm not going to use the profanity, but we all remember what he said, right? And I just don't think you're going to beat this Bills team because you're going to have to score in the 20s to get a win, at least. And I'm giving the defense the benefit of the doubt that they can hold Buffalo to 30 or under, right? I think they can. But they are going to
They already did.
Right. That's why I think they can.
Yeah.
But they have to score 27, right? Or it has to be 30-27 or 27-24 or something like that. They're not going to win this game in the teens. And to play conservatively like they did on that Thursday night game where they're running quick game, they're trying to run the ball, like, you're not going to keep up with Buffalo on the scoreboard like that. And I think that they've shown enough over the last couple of weeks opening up the passing offense and throwing the ball down the field a little bit more that to give the coaches confidence that they could do it. right? That Matt can put the ball on people, that the receivers can get open, that the line can hold up well enough to give those opportunities a chance to get down the field. And I think that they've shown enough explosiveness over the last couple of weeks to keep trying to do that. Because if you go into this Bills game and you try to go back to that Thursday night game plan and you're trying to beat Josh Allen with 6-yard passes down the field, and I know he doesn't play defense, but the point is that you have to score.
Trying to go punch for punch with him, yeah.
I just don't think that you can hang that way. And I would much rather, if they're going to lose and they're going to miss out on the playoffs, like I would much rather them go down swinging.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. You know, on one hand, what do you have to lose? A playoff spot. And that's something very significant to lose.
Right.
I am well documented as in being in the crowd of you people are lunatics for wanting the team to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you just, like you said, you're not going to beat Josh Allen and the Bills trying to win this game 16-14, 23-21, right? Like that's what they did last week.
Yeah.
Just hold on tight, get that score on defense, and just grind it out.
I think that's what they wanted to do on that Thursday night game, too, to be honest with you. I think they wanted to elongate the game, right? Or shorten the game.
Shorten the game, which you do need to do against this team to an extent.
Yeah.
You do need to do if you're playing the Bills. And I've talked about this before. You need to shrink their margin for error. That all still stands from a defensive point of view.
Right.
But you do need to take some shots. You
Yeah.
just do. You can only beat the Bills at their own. Like, you can only beat the Bills if you give them a taste of their own medicine a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's much easier said than done. But I'm not saying come out and be the Chiefs and run 4 verticals nonstop.
No.
But you got to have a couple plays in there that you're willing to kind of let it loose. And this, to go back to the Miami game as well, something we saw in that game that they haven't done a lot this year. They've been very conservative this year as a whole, offensively, on second and short. There's been a lot of times where they get into 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2.
They're
and
just looking to pick up the first down.
Right. Run the ball. They've run a number of quarterback sneaks in that situation, and sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But that's a great down to take a shot because the other team really has to defend everything.
Yeah.
Everything's on the table.
And you're in 3rd and 2, which should be convertible.
Right.
Maybe not for this team, but for most teams.
But the idea is now you have teams suckered in where your tendencies, what they're looking at when they get that scouting report, skew heavily towards, hey, they're probably going to be conservative here.
Yeah.
On 2nd and 2. And they had 3 second and shorts against the Dolphins. 2 of them they threw down the field. Once to Myers, once to Thornton. The one to Thornton was incomplete. The one to Myers was complete. And then there was the 3rd and 2, the 2nd and 2 on that drive we just talked about where they did do the quarterback sneak. But more of that mentality, you know, and first of all, you got to get in a 2nd and 2, and we talked about that. But if you can get in a 2nd and 1, 2, 3, take some shots on those downs.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if they can do that and they can convert on those, it sounds like a little thing. I'm talking about a very specific situation here. You know, they ran how many plays? 50, 60 plays against Miami. I'm talking about, 3 plays in a 50-game script, a 60-game script. They ran 57. I'm talking about 3 plays in a 57-play script.
Yeah.
But those can be impact plays. Those can be game-changing plays.
Right.
So that's something I'd like to see. We saw it for the first time last week. I'd like to see if that carries over. Now, this has kind of been a theme this year where they do something and it looks encouraging, and then we maybe don't see it again.
Well, that's the thing.
But I'd like to see it.
That goes back to the identity thing, right?
Right.
That I think sometimes this offense and this team on offense this year gets too caught up in game plan, right? Like, what's the best thing to do against this team? Well, you got to do what you can do best sometimes, right? And what you've consistently been able to execute, and not worry so much about especially when you're 26th in the league in DVOA and you're one scoring drive per game for the most part, right? Like, you're not a good offense right now. So to get caught up in, this is a zone team and they blitz or they don't blitz or they this or they that, like, I just think it's overcomplicating things sometimes where you just need to run your stuff. Like, run the plays that you feel confident in, that you feel good at. And I think that goes back to this game. You mentioned the second down play they threw incomplete to Thornton. That one was, I think, from like the 35 or 36 yard line, and it went into the end zone, right?
Yeah.
To throw it. I love that because, it was incomplete on that play, but I love the idea of taking shots from the fringe red zone, right? Because they're not good in the red zone. So what's the point of getting into the red zone? Like, I've been harping all year long. from the 25-yard line. Can we just throw it into the end zone from the 25? Because there's more space, obviously, right? So there's easier. It should be technically an easier access, and maybe you get it down to the 1-yard line on a DPI, like on the Jacoby Myers play.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it's a little bit easier. You're not trying to drive it in the red zone anymore, right? You're not 1st and 10 or 1st and goal from the 9. You're 1st and goal from the 2, and that makes things a whole lot easier for the offense at that point.
And it's something we know this offense can do. They did it last year with Hunter Henry. From like that 20, 25-yard line range, he was automatic in that range.
All right, we got to move over to defense because we got Bill coming up at 11:45, I think, so we got to move. Defense. First and foremost, I want to talk about this game and give them credit for this game because I thought this was the best job, and I know that they played backup quarterback, but still, go watch, Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson against Minnesota earlier this year. They lit them up, right? So just because they played these 2 backup quarterbacks, I don't think we can write off everything that they did. I want to give them credit because I thought this was probably the best game that they had this year at handling a number 1 elite receiver in Tyreek Hill and really a number 1 elite receiver in Jalen Waddle as well, right? You called those 2 guys combined, I believe, had under 100 yards in this game or right around 100 yards.
And look, I don't care who the backup quarterbacks are. Those guys are still they're going to run their routes less, right? They're going to run less like technically sound routes because it's a backup quarterback. They're sticking with those guys in coverage. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is at that point.
Right. So they played a lot of this zone coverage, and I think there is something to be said. I believe I'm trying to remember the stat off the top of my head. Since the Bills game in Week 13, where they've played teams like the Bills, they've played obviously the Bengals, the Dolphins, like these good passing games. All right, they are zone coverage on like 85% of their downs. They don't play man anymore. They just don't, and that's fine. It's because they don't trust the corners, right? They have Tay Hayes, playing out there at corner, who's been on the team for 3 days. You're not going to go have him. You got Jalen Waddle, right? You're not going to do that as much. Now, I think there is something to be said of, can you do this against an elite quarterback? Can you do this against Josh Allen on Sunday, where a lot of what you're doing is, they're playing a lot more split safety and they're spinning it, right? They're playing, they're starting in 2, they're making it 1, they're starting in 1, they're making it 2.
Happened on the Kyle Duggar interception.
Right, yeah, they're just spinning the dial in zone against these quarterbacks, and maybe that works against a Teddy Bridgewater, but it doesn't work against a Joe Burrow, or maybe it works against, a Derek Carr, but it might not necessarily work against a Josh Allen.
Well, Allen historically is better against man.
Well, their receivers are just so good that, if you want to try to cover Stephon Diggs and man for 4 quarters, like, good luck, right? And that's why I think a big reason why they're so good. They're great against man. They're great against post safety, right? Single high. They just shred it.
Right.
They shred it. So what they're trying to do, and this is the sort of every single time I ask a player or a coach about this, is that they want offenses to have to march. They want them to have to go on a 15-play touchdown drive instead of a 5-play touchdown drive. And I know that sounds obvious, but it's not how teams always play. Miami is a defense that tries to come after you.
Right, it's very aggressive.
And they try to play aggressive.
And let's not confuse that with bend, don't break, because it's not exactly the same thing.
No, I don't think so, because I think what they're trying to do is get that mistake. Right. And I don't mean get that mistake where they stall out in the red zone. I mean get the Kyle Duggar pick six.
They know how well the secondary ball hawks.
Right.
And they are the more throws you have to make in all these different looks, they're basically just trying to make the quarterback dizzy.
Yeah.
Is ultimately what it is. Hey, you're going to run 15 plays. You're going to see 15 different looks.
Right.
And then you're going to come out on the next drive and you're going to have to guess what you're going to see again. And they are trying to make these quarterbacks mentally malfunction,
they're
right?
Trying to
where
fool.
It's just data overload.
And I think the other thing that they're really trying to do, which they did a really good job against Miami in this game, and I think at times they did a good job against Buffalo in the first matchup, is they're trying to get the quarterback off the first read, right? And they know the first read is going to be Tyreek Hill, or it's going to be Waddle, or it's going to be Diggs, or something like that, right? So if they can get the quarterback to hold the football, and they haven't always done it, right? Because the quarterbacks that they've faced, Bridgewater in the beginning of this game, they've done a nice job of just taking profits, right? Okay, if you're going to back off and play zone, we're going to take the underneath stuff. But at the same time, I think what they've been able to do at times successfully is get the quarterback to hold the football. And now all of a sudden the quarterback's holding the football, and Judon and Uche and Barmore are coming after him, and they're able to get some pass rush going. And I think that's sort of the key as well, or the goal. I want to talk about Kyle Duggar.
Well, I would just say the other thing. When it comes to the Bills, and I say this all the time, they can get impatient.
Yes.
They want to play their game. They want to be the Globetrotters. They want that 5-play scoring drive. And something Josh Allen has done much better against the Patriots than any other opponent. He seems to be more willing to be patient against the Patriots than anybody else. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just Bill, but you watch him play, and like last year, right, going into the game here, those 3 or 4 games before that, he was not playing well. He had a 3-pick game against the Falcons, and it was the same thing because teams were just baiting him into it. And then he came here and he took checkdowns all day, and he just marched right up the field, and they didn't seem to have an issue with it. So he'll probably do that again, but Allen in this offense is a group you can make impatient, and they will eventually think, hey, we're talented, forget what they're giving us. Let's try that deep shot. And that will backfire on them at times. It hasn't against the Patriots, but it does against other teams.
Yeah. On Kyle Duggar,
he's very good.
AFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Yep. Pro Bowl snub.
His game, and I mean this as a compliment, and I think people are going to take it as an insult. His game reminds me a lot of prime Jamie Collins because he's got these unbelievable, unreal flashes, right? Where he's making these plays like the pick six where he jumps around, he drops off the line of scrimmage, from the line of scrimmage, drops to depth, jumps the route, and then has this ridiculous return where he's stiff-arming guys and breaking tackles and things like that. And you're like, holy crap, that's an all-pro safety type of play.
Yeah.
He also gets loose a little bit in coverage sometimes. It gets lost in zone coverage, right? And will give up some stuff. So the player that actually gave up, according to PFF, that gave up the most yards in coverage in this game was Duggar.
Okay.
Right? So he's a boomer bust player right now to a degree. But I still think that the boom out in his case with the offense, I don't think that's the case, right? I think the offense is too much bust, but with Duggar, I think in his case, the boom is certainly outweighing the bust, and I'll take some of the bust for the pick sixes, especially with this team because they need it, right? And the way he attacks the line of scrimmage is tremendous, against the run as a blitzer, all that type of stuff. He still is coming along a little bit, I think, in coverage. I still think that that's an area of weakness of his game. But I think with Jamie Collins in his prime, I still think Jamie Collins was a great player, right? And I think Duggar's a good player. So I think some of that conversation of, well, is he really, is he overrated? Is he good? Whatever. I think I don't know if that's really fair to him to be like, oh, well, he gave up all these yards in coverage, but they're asking him to go and make plays on the ball. They're not asking him to be Jelani Tavai, where you're just playing your role. He's got to make big time impact plays. And I think sometimes we fall into this as well with Judon, where maybe he lets the quarterback out of the pocket once every 10 times. But the Patriots, they don't need him to just push the pocket and collapse it, right? They need Judon to go out and get sacks and go out and get force takeaways and force big game-changing, game-swinging, drive-swinging plays in the defense's favor, and I think Duggar falls into that category as well.
So your knock is basically that he's not Ed Reed, which, isn't wrong, but if that's the worst thing you can say about the guy, he's pretty freaking good, right?
I think, and I don't think he quite has the interception numbers because he's not targeted as much. But I know, I think that Duggar this year is very similar to what J.C. Jackson was for this defense last year, right? Where he's the turnover machine. And
it's funny you say that because I think some of what I see with him, not necessarily in terms of the how you'd write up a scouting report on a player, but there is a similarity with J.C. Jackson in that there are these players that just they just get football on a level that it's not even a football IQ thing, and I think Duggar has a very high football IQ, but the way he reacts, just his knack to be able to get in the right place at the right time. And some people hear that and they think luck. No, it's not a luck thing. Like, you just watch him and you can see him realize, I need to be in this spot now. And he has the athleticism to get there. That's what that pick was. And he talked about it after the game. He's in a coverage assignment. His assignment stays into block. He becomes a free player. He recognized the route combination, and boom, he gets right there in the spot, and he makes the pick. And the thing about players like that is the more football they see, the better they get, because it's basically just processing information, right? I've seen this before. Do I know what's coming? It's kind of Tom Brady's answers to the test thing.
Yeah.
Right? He just knows his instincts in the moment are so good that he just knows, okay, I've seen this. This is how I need to react. And the more football players like that see, the better they get, because they simply have more information to work with. J.C. Jackson's a great example of this.
Yeah, he got better at it.
He's a very instinctual player, and the more he saw, the better he got. Jack Jones is another guy I've talked about in this light where his instincts are great, and he needs to get beat a couple times to kind of see how the game plays off of him. But
if you're going to play like that, I also think you are going to get beat sometimes.
And you are, but
right?
because it becomes a learning process.
And it also just inherently you're trying to make plays on the ball, and sometimes you are going to get beat, or sometimes you're not going to be in the right place. And I think with Jack, he's a little too aggressive with it, but I don't think that's necessarily Duggar's problem.
And well, Jack's a rookie too, right? Yeah. The more you see, the better it gets. There are some guys that have great instincts but never hone them.
Yeah.
And they just become these overly aggressive boom or bust players. Whereas, with Kyle Duggar, you're seeing a guy that I think is adjusting, is learning, is taking that information and applying it forwards. And I think you mentioned the boom or bust. I mean, it's much more towards boom than it was even a year ago.
Yeah.
So he has those instincts. He has that quick twitch ability. And now he's starting to use his experience to build on that and become an even better player.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, like I keep saying, with guys like Jamie Collins, with guys like a JC, you take some of the times where they get beat for the pick sixes, right? Like you just take some of the times. And I think that with Duggar, he's got a really solid baseline of run defense that he's a 4-down player just because of that, right? And the fact that he can be so many different things for this team too. He plays a traditional strong safety. He plays the linebacker.
Yeah.
He plays the edge or the nickel spot. Like, he can do all these different things.
We've seen him play on the boundary a couple times this year.
Yeah, they'll play him on the boundary in those 3 safety packages from time to time. So I think that Duggar wears more hats in this defense than anybody else. I think he's surpassed an Adrian Phillips type role. I think he's surpassed some of the guys up front that move on and off the line of scrimmage. He plays at the back end. He plays on the boundary. He plays in the slot. He plays at the linebacker level. He plays on the edge of the defense. Like, he plays in line when they blitz him, on those zeros, or they bluff him like they did on the pick six. He plays all over the field for this team. Last question on Duggar.
It's his own role. It's his own. It's not, he's in the Adrian Phillips role. He's in the Devin McCourty role.
He's not even in the Patrick Chung role.
He's in the Kyle Duggar role at this point.
The only guy, and I wasn't old enough to really study Rodney Harrison, but I have a feeling that this is pretty similar to how they ended up
snub Rodney Harrison.
Yeah, how they ended up using Rodney back then. So
I was actually looking at Rodney last night. I know we got to wrap it up, but I have to put this tangent out.
No, we don't have time for this.
Rodney Harrison comes into the league now. Is he a safety or a linebacker?
He's probably Duggar.
See, I think he's more like
Jamal Adams,
like a Fred Warner type, or
maybe
the name I want to use, and it hasn't panned out. But the guy we thought Nakobe Dean was going to be coming out of the draft.
Well, he's bigger
year.
than Nakobe Dean, though.
Not that much.
Nakobe Dean's like 5'11", like 220.
Rodney Harrison's 6'1", 220.
I just remember Rodney being thicker than that.
He's listed at 220. I was surprised too when I looked it up last night. But 6'1", 220 back then, no shot. Now, he might have been a linebacker. Just an interesting thought.
We have a.
I wish we had more time to nerd out on this.
I wish we had a we had a Hall of Fame minute planned, but all the schedule is compact today, so we're not going to be able to get to it. We'll get to it for the offseason. We'll get to it next week, because I'm fired up about that as well. All right, it's getting ridiculous.
And I want to have this conversation with you.
The really quickly, because I got to get it out really quickly. 70 Steelers. How many? Guess how many?
10.
They have 10.
I saw your tweet. Yeah.
How about The Lombardi Packers.
A lot.
12 Hall of Famers on the Lombardi Packers. And don't get me wrong, I think it should be harder than it was back then to get into the Hall of Fame. So I don't think there are 10 Hall of Fame players on the Dynasty era Patriots. But right now we are trending, and it depends on if you want to count Moss and Revis, you can count Moss and Revis.
Did you count Lombardi? Like, do you count the coaches in that?
No, those are additional.
Right.
But I think Bill's
going to get in.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
So right now it's trending towards probably 5. Right, so you have Law and you have Seymour already in.
How many people are going to be in with Patriots rings? Like, that's more the conversation.
Right. So they have Lombardi and they have Law and Seymour already in.
Yeah.
Brady's obviously going to be in.
Vinatieri should get in.
Vinatieri will probably get in, and then Gronkowski will get in.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 5. Now, if you want to count Moss and Revis, you can. So that's technically 7, but
that's not even with a ring, right?
And it's different because the 70 Steelers didn't have free agency, right? So Mean Joe Green played for the Steelers for 13 years for his entire career, right? He didn't go anywhere. But for guys like Vince Wilfork, guys like Rodney, I would even put guys like Devin McCourty in that conversation. Dante Hightower, Julian Edelman,
Corey Dillon.
Those guys,
Matthew Slater.
If those guys were on the 70s Steelers, they're lock Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
With the Patriots, they're not even finalists, let alone in the Hall of Fame. It's you can't have treated it one way for all of these years, and then you get to the modern era, and now all of a sudden all these other guys are going to get in.
And I mean, part of the problem though is the Hall has not done a great job recognizing not specialist players in like kickers and punters, but they have. But guys who like Vince Wilfork wasn't a statistical monster, right? And he wasn't, a guy like Julian Edelman wasn't a traditional wide receiver. Matthew Slater's another one. The fact that Devin Hester has gotten to a second ballot blows my mind. Yeah. Because I think they look at him as a wide receiver. Right. Who also returned kicks, but he's the greatest kick returner of all time. Kick returning's a position.
So the finalists came out last night. There are 15 of them. Some of them are locks. Joe Thomas, Darrelle Revis. Those guys are Hall of Famers, okay? But you're telling
Hester's a finalist, should be in.
Yeah, Hester. Like Jared Allen is a finalist.
I mean, he could play. He could.
I
have no problem with him getting in. He could. Over some of these other guys, I don't know, but he was a hell of a player.
I don't know. Every wide receiver, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's the best one out of that group. He was an animal, okay? Yeah. And he's playing with Sage Rosenfels and things like that in Houston. But it's just, I don't know. Reggie Wayne's going to get into the Hall of Fame, but Reggie Wayne is to Indianapolis what a Julian Edelman is, or Wes Welker is to the Patriots, right? And it's just, I don't know. All right, let's get to these calls. You guys got to be quick, but we can get to these 2 calls here before we wrap up. Justin in Virginia, thanks for hanging on. How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hey, I'd also add to Kyle Duggar just the value he provides in run defense, when he was on the field versus when he was off, was just unmatched.
Yeah, he's a great run defender. Absolutely.
Quick question though. A lot of people bring up Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr when they're talking about Mac Jones' physical skill set. If we gave him the weapons and support that Matt Ryan kind of had for the better part of his career, how do you think he would match up to Matt Ryan?
That's a good question,
and
Justin.
I'll take that off the air. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. So I tried to make the Matt Ryan comparison once upon a time with Mac Jones. Matt Ryan is 6'4", and he's just a bigger specimen than Mac Jones is. So I think there are probably a lot more physical tools to Matt Ryan's game than maybe people remember and maybe compared to Mac. But I mean, if you give Mac Jones prime Julio Jones, then I'm sure he would look great too.
I mean,
I definitely agree with the caller in that respect.
I don't know that he's going to win an MVP, but whatever one step below that is, sure, yeah, I could see it.
If he had prime Julio Jones and Kyle Shanahan calling his plays, I'm not sure if he would win MVP either.
Is Tony Gonzalez there for that?
I think that was post Tony.
Okay.
But he obviously had Tony Gonzalez for
That's
a
what
while,
I meant. For his career was Tony Gonzalez there. Maybe not.
Matt
I know
Ryan?
he wasn't
Yeah.
there that year, but
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
They had Julio and Tony Gonzalez at one point when they were, I think they made it to maybe one NFC championship game, or maybe they were competitive in a divisional game. I remember that for some reason. I think it was an NFC championship game. All right. Patty, what's going on?
What's up, guys? Real quick point before my couple questions. I said it when Aeneas Williams went into the Hall of Fame before Ty Law, but if Brian Dawkins is in the Hall of Fame, Rodney Harrison absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame along with Vince Wilfork. So just my couple quick questions are, with what happened on this past Monday night, do you think that these Bills players, if they line up, especially on defense, might still be in a little bit of state of shock, and that might make for a little bit more competitive game? Wanted to get your thoughts on that. And the last caller, Justin, who brought up guys comparable to Mac, I dare you guys to find me a better comp to Mac. Maybe not height-wise, but just watch him play. Eli Manning. It's almost like you're watching the exact same quarterback. That's all I got.
I don't. Thanks for the call, Patty. I don't hate the Eli comp. I know people around here are going to hate that just because of all the history, but I think Mac takes care of the ball maybe a little bit better than Eli
Mac's
did.
never going to lead the league in turnovers.
Yeah.
There's a couple things he's not going to lead the league in, to be fair, but he's never going to lead the league in turnovers.
Yeah,
like that.
but I understand from like a throwing motion, like like playing style.
I mean,
guess.
if you want to talk about the aesthetic thing, we said off the top, like guys, Eli and Peyton both, right? Remember the Manning face?
Yeah, they were ugly players.
What
was the other thing that he brought up?
Oh, if the Bills defense.
I don't know. I can't really like speak to that until we see it.
Look, I'll say this. I'm not going to blame guys for being hesitant about playing a football game on Sunday. Like I wouldn't blame any of them for that. Now, how that impacts the game itself, who knows? You know, maybe it's a thing where you kind of, you know, as the game goes on, they feel better about it. But I wouldn't blame anybody. And it could be the reverse. It could be, hey, you know, let's go win this for our guy, and maybe you get that effect too. I don't know how they're thinking. And the reality is, it's probably going to be a range, and different guys are going to fall in different points of that scale. But I would not fault anybody for coming into that. And by the way, across the league, I wouldn't fault players for coming into this game and maybe being a little timid to start on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they're going to be timid to tackle people and stuff, because once you get back out there, I think it just becomes second nature. Like, I'm a football player. This is sort of what I do, right? But I do wonder, the big thing for me is if the Chiefs win on Saturday.
Yeah.
And the NFL has decided that they're not going to play Bengals-Bills.
Which I think was reported this morning. It was trending that way, right?
Right. Then the Bills can't get the number 1 seed. So at that point, they're talking about 2 and 3. Now, if they win, they would be the 2, so that would guarantee 2 home playoff games.
Right.
So it is a factor. But I think that at that point, you know you're playing on wild card weekend. You know you're not getting the bye. I think to a degree, maybe you get to a point there where how much does that game really mean to Buffalo? I think the 2 seed is somewhat important because you're going to play the Bengals probably on the divisional round, and you want that to be in Buffalo. But I don't know if that alone is enough to get everybody up for this game, especially after what happened on Monday night, and also play all out. Like, if you're Josh Allen on Sunday and you can't get the number 1 seed, Sean McDermott has to be saying to Josh Allen, like, hey, like,
throw the ball away, right?
Let's cool it this week. All right, we got to get going here. Sorry to Jerry on the line. We'll call back for Unfiltered. They'll be on at noon. We're going to go talk to Coach Belichick right now. And Alex and I will be back next week. Our time keeps on changing. We're sorry about that, but we're just trying.
Follow on Twitter.
We're probably going to be on at this time. We're just trying to stay on video because we know you guys love the video. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.